Hi everyone, my name is Ahsana Choudhury and I'm a software engineer at JP Chase & Co. And for this tech talk, I'll be talking about pair programming and how this is the bridge between communication and code. Before we begin, just a quick disclaimer that any opinions or personal views I express are my own and not those of JP Chase & Co. So let's begin. What is pair programming? Well, this is a software development technique derived from agile methodologies, such as extreme programming. It involves two engineers, but half the equipment, so one monitor, one keyboard, and one mouse. Both are involved in the delivery of the product, so they have the creative freedom to contribute to the project with their ideas, the designs, and the strategies. One is the driver and the other is the navigator. The most fundamental part in pair programming is that both engineers swap roles at different intervals. This gives the project a fresher perspective because both engineers are constantly switching their frame of thinking. In this talk, we'll be exploring three different areas, and these are cultivating pair programming, acknowledging the human side of coding, and the trailblazing future of pair programming. So the driving forces. While pair programming can improve the quality of software design, this is because two engineers working on the product will have a shared understanding and will be able to familiarize themselves with the code base. Therefore, they'll find it easier to identify what areas can be improved, what areas can be used for scaling, and essentially what opportunities there are for driving growth in the product. It can also enhance technical skills. After all, pair programming is a technical activity. Through practical knowledge sharing, the beginner can pick up new skills, and the more advanced can address any gaps in their own knowledge. Lastly, it can improve communication. The other side of pair programming is to articulate and resonate the decisions that you've made and why you're making them. Systemic impact. So research has shown that pair programming can attribute to up to 15% fewer bugs to fix. In a controlled experiment conducted by Alistair Cockburn and Laurie Williams in the year 2000, they found that whilst there was a small cost in adding a secondary person, so then there was a little bit of increased time, the resulting code has significantly less defects in the final product. Through the rigorous testing, it can then produce scalable software. So the engineers would have then proven that it can integrate within and therefore give the potential to upscale in the future. Next, it can consolidate working relationships between the engineers. Over time, pair programming may be able to consolidate these relationships because the practice of rotating engineers during pairings may help foster new working relationships and give one another the platform to share their ideas and eventually complement the two approaches in projects. So the pairing roles. First is driver, so they're the person who are in charge of the keyboard. They're the ones who implement the code, they're the ones who refactor the code, and they're the ones who execute the test. They're the more tactical thinker, so they just see what's in front of them, and then they work with that. So it's kind of just in a certain scope of working with the code. The navigator is the one who guides the driver. They're the ones who suggest and correct the code base, and they strategize the next move. So they're the more strategic thinker, and they're the ones who see the wider picture and the bigger picture. Next, we have a combination of both the navigator and the driver. This is a really energetic role, and it's constant discussion. You're both bouncing ideas off of each other, and you're actively collaborating. You're providing each other feedback on your designs and your ideas, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, please remember to be kind and patient. Of course, it is really energetic, really active. So there's two different approaches with the code. The driver is tactical and the navigator is strategic. Kind of think of it as going on a road trip. So the driver is the one who's in charge of the steering wheel, and the navigator, they're the ones who are looking for the directions, and they're the ones who are looking at the map, and even saying, hey, you wanted to fill up your tank, here's a service station that's coming up in 5 miles. So yeah, it's things like that. Next, pairing methods. So whilst there is a singular way in pairing roles, there are multiple methods. In this tech talk, we will be discussing 3 of these. First one is countdown. And this one is really good for compressed time for pairing. This is similar to the Pomodoro technique, in which it is purely uninterrupted work for about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 25, you're in charge of the time. And so what you do is you set a timer and you drive at a set time interval. This then gives both the driver and navigator equal opportunity to alternate their roles throughout the pairing. Next is organic. This one is my personal favourite of pairing methods. This is when the driver or the navigator has an idea and they actively pursue it. It's very energetic, and it's kind of like a light bulb moment. You think, hey, I have an idea, here's my idea, let's just go for it, let's just see where it goes. And so then the other person watches you implement it and then provides you feedback and strategizes, and then just move forward from then. Next is mobbing. So this is when both the driver and navigator are stuck at a problem. So they've used all their avenues and they still haven't found the right solution. So they gradually get more and more people from their team to evaluate their potential solutions and their ideas and their designs. And so what this essentially means is, in the event of more than 2 people programming, this is what is called mobbing, because it's no longer a pair, it's more of a bigger group. So technical skills versus soft skills. And what we have seen in this talk is that pair programming can aid in both technical skills and soft skills, because you need to be more communicative, and you also need to have the domain knowledge to implement the project. It gives engineers the platform to educate one another, and in turn strengthens their interpersonal communication through each collaboration, because the beginner will always be picking up new skills and new knowledge, and the more experienced person in the pairing will be able to consolidate their knowledge as well by addressing any gaps as they go on. As Ken Whitaker said in 2009 in his research, there has been a substantial shift where a team member's motivation has a lot to do with team relationships and the working environment. And this leads on to my next point, which is trust. Successful collaboration through pair programming needs a strong level of trust, because trust is something that is part of human nature. I trust you with my ideas, I trust you to give me constructive criticism, and I trust you to share your designs with me as well. So this establishment of trust may lead to more creativity, because both the engineers will be able to be more open with more innovative ideas and more different approaches to the solution. And this in turn could potentially compel a more supportive environment, because you know that there's a bit of a safety net with your teammates, and you know that they'll always be open to hearing your views, and you'll also be able to get good constructive feedback from them. So it's very worthwhile for both of you. Dynamic deliverables. One of the most important motivational factor is the variety of work. So this could be a rotation of projects to complete in the product backlog. So then you're always keeping your knowledge fresh, and you could always you have different exposure to different projects. Next is encouraging engineers to constantly stretch their goals. and to always look at the next level in their skills. So once they've achieved their objectives, what do you need to do to build upon that as well? Teams can then look into improving the quality of products delivered through presenting new opportunities for the engineering teams. So this could be different projects to complete in the backlog, different customers to liaise with, and different peer-to-peer program with. And this could then establish an equal balance of challenging and stimulating expectations to meet, along with the real-life capabilities of the engineer. This could then potentially lead to creative freedom, and the engineer may be more open to explore more innovative options in the project. And as Meetup et al. Said in 2015, motivation releases energy and creativity and is an essential component of high performance. Because when you have high motivation, you're more energetic and you're more creative. These three triangulate to be a higher performer. The power of Tshape. So recently there's been a bit of ongoing discussion on what's the best way to approach your career, whether you should be a generalist or a specialist. So as we can see in the diagram here on the top right, what a specialist tends to be is eye-shaped, so they are an expert at one thing, whereas a generalist is capable of a lot of things. Whereas T-shaped is a combination of the two. Here they have the core deep knowledge in one area, but then they are also specialised in multiple different areas. So this is a topic that was discussed last year at Brighton Digital Festival, and what T-shaped helps is with fostering team ownership. So teams may be able to do more with the same number of people. Because the expert can cross-train their peers, and then they can harness the generalised approach in T-shapes, and then the peers can also help cross-train one another and to expand their knowledge in their core area as well, as shown here. So then they can do more with the same number of people, as they had consolidated their skill sets. Used in business, pair programming can be compatible with cross-located teams. You don't need to be sat next to one another to actually pair program, as the global pandemic has demonstrated the imperative need to digitise working practices. So you can both log in to Zoom or to Skype or to Adobe Connect, and then one can request control of your machine and then drive, and the other can be the navigator. And then you could always alternate roles like that. It is also cost-effective knowledge transfer. As we had discussed previously, the more knowledgeable person in the pair can always context share between teammates. And then this can also help with onboarding newer members into the team as well, because then they get a gist of what the team itself does in the project, rather than a generalized overview. Therefore, this can then create a more flexible workforce. So, software engineering principles. Teams have a more responsibility in software engineering to ensure that artifacts produced are accessible and inclusive. So once you have completed your functional requirements and your non-functional requirements, You also need to look at web accessibility and ensure that your artifacts are accessible and inclusive, because ultimately people are the end user of the product, and usually the target audience is not an extension of yourself, it is someone who has these extra needs. Next, code bases are conceived from good engineering practices. You can't have one or the other. With good engineering practices, you can then have good code bases. And what this means is you need to make sure that your code is readable and it's sustainable, because all code in one day or another is going to be legacy code. So then you need to know that your successor will be able to understand what you had written and then can take it forward. Next, testing needs to be at the forefront to properly assess integration with other interfaces. You need to ensure that there is no cross impacts with any other products. And you also need to ensure that there aren't any hidden bugs in your product as well. Therefore, collaboration with quality assurance and test analysts is key, because the tester will be able to see things that the engineer might not be able to. So to conclude, the essence of cultivating pair programming is to continuously develop, and is to also bridge the gap between communication and code, and is to always continuously learn and continuously integrate. It is also fundamental to acknowledge the human side of coding, whether that may be through pair programming or solo programming or any other alternative software development you and your team have adopted. Soft skills are just as important as technical skills. Therefore, teams need to understand and harness the basics of good communication and good team working and good self-management, as these are the fundamentals and foundation of programming. Next, pair programming may present an opportunity for experts to cross-train peers and allow beginners to upskill in-house by helping each other consolidate their knowledge in skills that are relevant to the team and what can be of value. And in conclusion, a problem shared is a problem halved. So thank you for listening, and please do feel free to connect with me on my blog and my Twitter and on my LinkedIn. Thank you.